Guys of Reddit, what is your worst meeting the dad moment when dating someone new? Had a massive poop on hold. We didn't know he was home, so we got in and I dashed to the toilet. 10 minutes later I had destroyed and quarantined the bathroom. When I went out he sees me and comes to greet. I tried to close the door to lock the odor in but I failed. The smell was really bad. I saw his right eye tear up a little. You asserted your dominance by leaving a sign of your passing. When you're meeting the dad for the first time, but the dog comes up to you and is super friendly because he already knows you, awkward. Wi-Fi auto-connecting is a dead giveaway as well. My girlfriend's stepdad was at work, so we were in her room watching TV on her bed. We weren't hugging, just holding hands sitting next to each other because of the way the bed is sat. I hear him arrive home downstairs, and about 10 minutes later when I least expected it, a man who's a little shorter than me but a lot more bulked out, slams open the door, with his arm already extended like a freaking Cyberman from an old Doctor Who episode, shouting, "Hello Laflux, how are you?" I thought it was some act done to intimidate me and it really did make me nervous. After a few months of knowing the guy I know it was out of nervousness. The first time I was at my, now ex, GF's place, we each took a piece of fruit when she showed me around. When I finished my banana, I went to throw it away downstairs. Their garbage can was below the sink, so I bent down, and it made quite some noise when I opened it. From the other side of the room comes an angry "Hey hey, what do you think you're doing there?" As I stand up again I look into an angry dad and stumble up, just throwing away my banana. Double quote. Then he starts laughing. "Oh, haha, I thought it was the dog going through the thrash. I couldn't see you." They made fun of that for a long time. I had been dating this girl for about 3-4 months and it was time to meet her family. We made arrangements and went over for dinner. He was nothing short of a freaking prisoner. I still refer to him as the prisoner. The entire night he barely spoke, and when he did it was only after being directly prompted by his wife or daughters, and it was always one-word answers. The entire dinner was them making jokes at his expense, making fun of him while simultaneously spilling the beans on intimate, personal details of his life. His wife treated him with absolute contempt and disdain, which was translated into how his daughters treated him as well. The only living thing in that house that had any affection for him was the cat. This man spent 30 years working his ass off as a civil engineer to raise a family. His wife never worked a day in her life, before or after him. He put 2 daughters through college, paid their freaking rent, on top of paying for their cars and basically everything else. And they treated him like a malfunctioning robot butler. His eyes were completely dead, like a lion who's been in the zoo too long. It scared the freaking crap out of me, so I broke up with her about a week later. It was like a visit from the ghost of Christmas future. I would like you to meet my dad. Shows me an urn, and on the urn is an engraving. "If you touch my daughter you'll be joining me in here." I had a Filipino GF in college. Decided to meet the parents. I drove around 3 hours to meet them, and even brought flowers and stuff. When for the first time in their life, they decide to practice a tradition of rejecting the BF 3 times before accepting him. The point is that if you really want their daughter, you'll try as many times as it takes. And since they had never done it before, my GF didn't think about warning me. I was pretty dang annoyed when they tossed my flowers right into the garbage. He insisted he play me in chess. I lost. Was invited over to watch Pride and Prejudice with a girl I liked. Why that movie? We were about 19. She stayed with her dad. Met dad and he did typical dad things. Fast forward a few hours and we are in the dark living room on the couch watching the movie. Her legs were on my lap and I was rubbing them when I see a glint to my left by the hallway. Her dad is standing in his boxers holding a big kitchen knife. Everything alright and their gen yet dad she didn't even see him and never believed me when I told her what happened. Sitting on the couch with my Jewish now ex-wife's dad the first night I met the parents when I heard her mother from the kitchen. Not only is he Catholic, he's Irish. Those are the worst kind. That was fairly awkward. While in high school a girl and we're making full use of the living room since her parents were gone for the day. At one point we're just kinda laying naked on the couch between rounds and we hear the door open so we throw a big ass blanket over ourselves. In walks her dad who greeted us. He had heard of me but hadn't met me, and proceeded to watch the movie we had on as background noise with us for another hour, all the while we're just naked under a blanket on the other couch. He knew. I'm female, but I have a story that'll fit. Background: my dad is a very blunt man, sweet as can be and would give you his last penny, but he's got no filter and will not even pretend to like someone if he doesn't. I had dated this guy in my early 20s, who was a complete douche. I was too in love to see it, or even care tbh. The first time he met my parents, my mom, the ever sweet southern debutante, was nice to him. My dad, not so much. Mom and ex were talking, and mom notices that dad is leaned back in the chair sleeping. She wakes him up to tell him how rude he's being. My dad said might be rude, but I don't like that boy, not gonna talk to him. Got nothing to say, then friggin' went back to sleep. I was mortified. Dad loves my spouse though. Showed up at her house unexpectedly at 11 PM. He was in bed. Once I was let in by her brother, he went and woke dad up to meet me. 2/10 experience. Don't wake a 250-pound Puerto Rican as a first meeting while dating his youngest daughter. The dad was an ex-army ranger. He made me do yard work while the girl stayed inside. He started a fire to burn trimmed tree branches and started the "say you like my daughter" speech. That was fun. Girl's father was in a wheelchair, but was built very well. He obviously lifted as much as he could from his confines. Girlfriend warned me he previously tried to break a guy's hand upon meeting him and shaking his hand. So, I went to meet him. He stuck his hand out to shake mine. I didn't hesitate. I shook his hand. He looked at his daughter as if to say, if you weren't here, I'd totally snatch his hand off his wrist. Then he started giving me the talk about dating his daughter. He ended it with telling me about his .45 in a shelf. I really wanted to answer with the shelf right next to me, but across the room from you, but I decided against it. Apparently while we were out, her parents ransacked her bedroom and found our notes that we had written back and forth. I wrote words like crap and ass, so they forbade her from seeing me again. Not me, but when my one friend's daughter started seriously dating a man, we decided to have some fun. This is a big Italian family, so we had his brothers-in-law and his father and his best friend and some other friends, most of whom were big guys. We set up the kitchen chairs in a semicircle with one more chair in the center. All of us sat down in the chairs and called in the boyfriend. The father told him to take a seat and then said, cracking his knuckles, "What exactly are your intentions toward my daughter?" Then we couldn't keep straight faces, so we all laughed and had drinks. The dad was a huge guy, probably 6 feet 5 inches at least, and super ripped. When I first met him he was wearing no shirt and basketball shorts. He introduced himself as the leader of the local Hells Angels chapter and said, if anyone in town starts anything with you guys, tell them you are with me. He was actually a nice guy most of the time unless he was drunk. I've heard stories before meeting him, so when I seen him it was scary. He actually was really nice and made everyone spaghetti for dinner. First time I went to my ex's house, a dog greeted me at the door before anyone else arrived. He then proceeded to hump my leg, and when I would smack him off he would bite my fingers. So when her dad came to answer the door I was just standing there dead-eyed with a little blue heeler humping the frick out of me. Not me, but my friend's little brother had finally found the love of his life. These two fricking lovebirds were a match made in heaven. I think months had gone on and he ended up over at her parents for dinner. I think they were both in their mid-20s. The story told is that the girl's wild-eyed stocky little uncle grabbed my buddy by the throat and slammed him in the wall about 2 seconds after shaking his hand in a very pronounced effort to discourage him from becoming that guy who broke her little heart. Anyways, I think dinner that night was a tad awkward. The couple is still going strong, and I never heard of any other incidents to follow. That's a quick way to make him into that guy who broke her heart. My high school girlfriend missed a week of school because she had pharyngitis. One day I went over to bring her some stuff from her locker and thought it would be funny to walk in wearing a surgical mask. I stood outside the house tying it around my head when her very tall and stocky father came out and asked me who I was and what I was doing. I told him I was the new BF and thought it would be funny to wear a mask. He wasn't amused and neither was my GF. As a teenager I met my GFS at the time's dad and we had same pair of shorts on. Dad shorts. First family dinner together. Grandma is in US for 75 years but never learned English. Stares at me sternly then rattle off in Italian while pointing a gnarly finger at me. Dad rattle back. What did she say? Dad eating. Without looking up. She likes your shirt. All laugh but me. As a teenage dweeb, I dated this very sweet girl during my senior year of high school for a few months. She finally asked me over to have dinner at her family's house to kinda show the family that we're taking our relationship seriously. I had never met her parents before nor had I even done a meet the parents before, so I was a little freaked out about how the introduction would go. We head over together to her house that evening and walk into the kitchen. Her mom greets us and seems delighted to meet me, which puts me in a good mood. Then she runs upstairs to grab her dad, who I can hear moaning and groaning about coming down. I didn't make out all of what they said, but I heard him distinctly say I'm not introducing myself to a 17-year-old dipshit who thinks he can touch my daughter. Oof, okay. My girlfriend and I awkwardly stand around pretending we're not hearing this stuff, when we hear a fine and the parents both walk back down the stairs. Her dad totally reluctantly, in this over-the-top way extends his hand and says you're reticent. Literally just as I reach my hand out to say yes, I get a nosebleed. He stands there for a moment, mutters yup and walks straight out the back door to his woodshop, where he stayed for the rest of the night. Frick that overdramatic butthole, I didn't even do anything wrong yet. First time I met my fiance's dad I drank all his beer and drunkenly called him a homo. It's never been brought up so I think I'm good. Please let me give you a tour of the house. First stop, my gun collection. I got questioned by an ex's dad while he was cleaning his shotgun. Went hunting shortly after that and I survived so must have gone well. The first time I met my GF's dad I tried to shake his hand and introduce myself all serious and respectful like. He grabbed my hand and half shook it without even once looking at me. I thought he was the world's biggest dong. 6 years later I'm engaged to his daughter and he and I are pretty dang close. He's paying for me to go to Disney World next year with him and his family for his older kid's wedding. Went to shake his hand and he left me hanging. Then about 4 years later, when telling him his daughter and I were getting married and she was a few months pregnant, he just said it's gonna be a small wedding. Eventually he stopped hating me. In 2005 I took a train to Connecticut to meet my college girlfriend's family. She picked me up from the train station and when we got to the house, I had to pee really bad. Trip from Philly to Hartford was like 4 hours, so I figured I'd run to the potty before I would meet the family. She told me to use a bathroom upstairs BC they were renovating the downstairs one. Open the door, there's her dad pooping. This was towards the mother, but I cringe with embarrassment still. I was meeting my friend's parents, and my friend was laying down the rules while walking there. No cursing, no dirty jokes. Okay I respond. Well, what am I gonna do? Hi, I'm Ninjajusus 101. Have you heard about the man who jerked off into a spoon suddenly? A voice behind us. Oh, that's interesting. Her mother was right behind us. My boyfriend was so nervous that he forgot to wear shoes. I have so many questions and don't even know where to start. I was about 20 years old when this happened. The man, 21, I was dating for about 2 months or so was really pushy about hooking up. I was just not ready so I broke up with him. And that is when I met his dad for the first time. When I broke up with him, he wanted to be friends. However I don't like being friends with the excess, let alone one that keeps pushing me to do things I don't wanna do. His dad got his number from his son and called me, saying I made his son cry and demanded I start dating him again, or else he is going to have a stern talking to me and the bartender that introduced us, and maybe even going to get the police included. Before I met my wife, I was dating an Aussie woman, since I was working in Australia at the time. We'd shared some info about our past relationships flings, you know, normal getting to know each other type stuff, gauging what sort of life experience the other person has had. As it turns out, my last serious long-term relationship was with a black woman and for some really messed reason, she ended up telling her father, who works as a long-distance truck driver, Did I mention that she was nuts? So what were his first words upon meeting me? I hear you used to shag a darkie. Yup, I think with that one sentence, I pretty much grasped the attitude of the entire family to a wide variety of social and racial demographics. Walk up to front porch the dad was sitting on. Dad, how's it going? Me, not too bad. How about? Dad, I wasn't talking to you. I was the only one there. Then I noticed he was petting a mounted deer head and had a gun out. Me, normal white guy. Her, super attractive black chick. After a few weeks of dating, she invited me to her house for dinner to meet her parents. Her mom and brother were really awesome. Her dad, though, essentially put me in a corner and started going off on me about how I'm some white boy that's only with his daughter so I could put another notch in my belt and that us white boys only like banging black chicks for bragging rights. Everybody, myself included, thought he was just joking at first, but soon their mouths were hanging open and it was pretty apparent that they were super embarrassed. This went on for about 10 minutes. At the time I was running a gun range, so his family stopped him when he said, I bet you just sit at home waiting for some men to break in, just so you can shoot him. It was all so odd, completely unprovoked. He was the only butthole out of an entire family that had been one of the coolest I've met. Our relationship dive bombed after that. I'm Bieber dating a girl at the time. We walked home from watching Finding Dory. She lives about a quarter mile away from the theater, and when we walk in the door, I'm greeted by the man I slept with 2 months earlier. I have a story about when my wife met my dad. My dad and I stopped by the CVS where my new girlfriend worked on the way home from fishing or something. She was in the back at the pharmacy. I pointed her out from the front of CVS. My dad says, did she see you? No. Good. Stay here. Walks up to her and asks if they have Vagisil. She says yeah and points to a little tube not far from him. He gets this worried look on his face and says, no, honey, I need more than that. Do you have it in a gallon? She stares at him for a second and starts to laugh. He then got peed off and yells, do you think this is funny? My old lady's snatch looks like a month-old roast beef sandwich. I quickly stepped in to save my girlfriend from my slightly redneck dad who took a joke while too far. He thought it was funny. It's been 8 years now and I think she still hasn't forgave him for it. Got a real shock meeting her father for the first time, because it was like looking at an older, paunchier version of myself. We'd been dating at university and having a lot of fun. Very kinky girl who taught me a lot. She did like to call me daddy while we fricked sometimes, which wasn't my thing, but you've got to be GGG. But when I met him and saw how similar looking we were, the daddy talk got really uncomfortable really quickly. The relationship didn't last long after that. You have been visited by the Inspector Doggo. Comment your confession. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.